Jeff, good morning. We're finally learning more about just what happened in the minutes leading up to that catastrophic implosion that took the lives of 5 people. And now some experts are raising questions about whether warning signs were ignored. Could the Titan submersible tragedy have been prevented? In a Coast Guard hearing Friday, a passenger who
Have you seen or heard from Alan Broom? No. Is he supposed to be here for something? He didn't want to do the talk. I was going to ask him to do it, but if he's not going to come, I just would introduce myself, but then this is the talk that I was going to give. It's from the Jewish Virtual Library and it's about baby names. So that's what I thought.
You don't feel well enough?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be the worst that I am, so that I would do it. I was going to ask Alan to just kind of up his alley in the way that he did it before.
Oh, I didn't know he did it before.
What wasn't it the Burmans that had the other baby name?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give it to you then after I say something.
You want to get to the case of lunch? Yeah, well, we have a big thing going on here today.
Mazel tov. Hi, Charlene. Mazel tov.
Right.
That's great.
All right, we'll start in 15 seconds. That's the question. 15 seconds. You have 15 seconds. Oh, we have no, it's okay. Next week on June. You want to?
Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everybody. We are going to begin our service. If you have not yet put on your talit, we have talitot available in the back. If you haven't put it on yet, I'll invite you to rise and we can say the bracha together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. Done, and you may be seated. And we're going to join together just to kind of warm us up and prepare us for our congregation Shir Ami service with a nigun, a melody. I the diggy die, the diggy die, 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 I the diggy die, the diggy die. I the diggy die, the diggy die, 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 I the diggy die, the diggy die. La 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 la. I the diggy die, the diggy die. La 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 la. Diggy die, diggy die, diggy die, diggy die, 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 diggy die, diggy die. I diggy die, diggy die, 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 diggy die, diggy die. And we begin our service on the bottom of page 14 at letter E. Yismetu Hashamayim. Yismetu Hashamayim. Yismetu Hashamayim. V'tayel haaretz. Yeramayam. 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 Oh, Yeramayam. Yeramayam. Yeramayam, Hoshea and Amen. Vare Nachlatel. Murray, 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 Benase Maraolam. Hoshea and Amen. Vare Nachlatel. Murray, 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 Benase, Murray, Benase, Maraolam. Mizmor, Shir, Leo, my Shabbat. 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 I hope you all have a prayer book. If not, we have them on the table in the back. We have Talitot available as well. The first part of services are always to set the mood, create a feeling of Shabbos and prayerfulness. That's what we're in the middle of doing now. We're now on page 15 at the top of the page. Sadik katamar yifra, sadik katamar yifra, sadik katamar yifra, sadik katamar yifra. Yered bavanon get, yered bavanon get, yered bavanon get, yered bavanon get, yered bavanon get. Me follow Mayim, Happy Madi. Me Freya, Adir Bamaro, Madonai. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 Bye, 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 bye. Bye, 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 b Malachutcha, Malachutol Olamim, Shabtecha, Bechol Edor Vador, Malachutcha, Malachutol Olamim. Shabtecha, Bechol Edor Vador, Malachutcha, Malachutol Olamim, Shabtecha, Bechol Edor Vador, Malachutcha, Malachutol Olamim, Shabtecha, Bechol Edor Vador. Va'anachnu nivarecha, me'ata v'adolam, me'ata v'adolam. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Va'anachnu nivarecha, me'ata v'adolam, me'ata v'adolam. Hallelujah, We are at the bottom of page 15. We have additional prayer books in the back. Bottom of page 15. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Shama. Hallelujah, Oh, and Shama de Alleluia, Alleluia, Go and Shama de Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Please rise for the borrow. La 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 la. La 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 la. Please be seated. We are on page 16. We have prayer books in the back for anybody who might have walked by them by accident and will need them for services. We're on the top of page 16. Amiga e achayo hakodet neder b'chavod al merkava v'ku surely they saw Rachamim nifnei Don't road to Bara Elohim Tzara v'ta'at levina u'basket Mostly Ramesh by from no Nimlo, Lord Sivama, We're on the middle of page 16. We have more Seed to Ring prayer books in the back. I see a lot of you might not have one, and you'll need them to know what the words are. They are, all the prayer books are in the back. Anybody needs a prayer book, they're in the back. So we're continuing on the middle of page 16. Or we are at the bottom of page 16, and we are coming to the Shema, which you can see is on the next page. We have a special way of singing the Shema in our contemporary service. So I want to alert you so that you can be a part of the experience. And also, if you could start to tone down your phone so that I know the Lord may be calling every now and then to remind you there are prayer books in the back if anybody doesn't have them. You could you put them on mute. We're going to, when we sing the Shema, which is not actually a prayer, it's actually just a statement because it's not directed to God. It's Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So it is a statement of faith, monotheism. But when we say, we're going to be doing two things. when our kids were young, and sometimes my wife and I would reprimand them. And our daughter once said, "Stop yelling at me." And we said, "But we're not yelling at you." And she said, "You don't have to raise your voice to yell." So we're going to do that when we do the Shema. We're going to yell it, but we're not going to raise our voice. So we're going to do a slower, lower modality of singing the Shema. And then the second thing that we're going to be doing, other than singing it sotto voce, we're going to sing it slowly. Somebody once said, "How do you pronounce God's name?" And the rabbi said, "Here's how I pronounce God's name." He said, "Whenever I inhale, I'm saying God's name." So we're going to remind ourselves of the life forces that come into our body all the time. And we're going to break up the Shema into words so that we pause in between each word to take a nice deep breath. So we're on the bottom of page 16. We're doing the very last few sentences. In the meantime, you might also, if you're wearing a talit, which we also have available for you in the back, gather the four corners, the fringe, because that's going to be explained in one of the paragraphs that we do. But let us gather our tzitzit together as we continue on the bottom of page 16 in preparation for the Shema. וקרבתנו לשמך הקדוש באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. ויעקב את אדוני בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים ההם אשר אנוכי אצווך היום על לבבך ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשכבך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשעריך ובקדמך חמיות על ידיך היו לתותחות בעיניך וכתבתך על מזוזות ביתך Continue at the top of page 18 in the English. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the children of Israel and bid them to make tzitzit in the corners of your garments throughout their generations, putting upon the tzitzit of each corner a thread of blue. When you look upon the tzitzit, you will be reminded of all the commandments of the Lord and obey them. You will not be led astray by the inclination of your heart or by the attraction of your eyes. Thus will you be reminded to fulfill all my commandments and be consecrated to your God. I am the Lord your God." Alzod, shivachu ahuvim, shivachu ahuvim. V'romemu, 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 v'romemu el. V'natenu, v'natenu yedidim. V'natenu, v'natenu yedidim. Zmirot shirot v'tishbachot v'rachot v'hodaot l'melech el-chai v'kayam Ram v'nisan gadol v'nora mashpil keim umagbi ashefalim Motzi asirim ufode anav v'yozer dalim v'yoneliam oliye shavam melam Ilo v'elion berchum v'vorach Moshe b'nei Yisrael acham v'shirah Simcha Rabbah v'yamaru chulam Mi chamocha v'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar v'kodesh Norati lo dosei Shira Chadashah Shibuchu V'Ulim Ushim Chasvar Hayam Yachatulam Hotulim Lichu V'Yamaru Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed. We're going to pause on our service now because we're coming to a prayer that's not even there. Series of prayers actually that are there. This is in our contemporary service prayer book, and it's even though we're members of the United Synagogue, we're a conservative congregation. The prayer that we put together was really designed for people who maybe look for something less than a or different from a traditional service. So some of the aspects of the traditional Saturday morning service are going to be substituted with moments of community. That's where we are now. We're in the section here where instead of saying the prayers of the Ami, series of prayers, we're going to not do those prayers at all. Instead, our prayerfulness is going to be forms of gratitude and thankfulness. And the best way to be thankful is because in a minute I'm going to ask you all just to stand and to be thankful. Just think about all that we have to be grateful for. And before we do that, we have to remind ourselves that in the community there are a lot of other people who are celebrating and enjoying life and have things for which they are grateful that they would like to share with us. Now, we're all here to, or many of us are here to share the birth of the baby, but we're going to hold off a little bit on that until we get to the Torah service. So we can do baby again, but now is our opportunity to share what we are thankful for on the Shabbat. So raise your hand when you come around with the mic and please share it with the community. Who would like to start? Finally, my way.
Well, I'm grateful that we're here with such a lovely congregation, and I'm also grateful that our grandson Evan is having a sleepover at our house. So it's very nice.
Thank you. Who else would like to share with you are thankful for?
I am grateful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this very special occasion with us. I am thankful for you and your wife and my granddaughter who's outside eating, so she won't be screaming. I don't want anything to happen. I'm so grateful that my family is grown and that we're all healthy and we're happy. And I'm just grateful for my friends and my family. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think I'm a first because Rabbi Borsand officiated my bat mitzvah 47 years ago and is now naming my granddaughter. How crazy is that? But thank you all so much for coming and sharing in this happy occasion.
Paula Frank and Paula's grandmother and Paula. Our number 6 congregation has it for many, many years. A little bit more about histories. It's wonderful to see so many of the family, great family. Some of your family, this is a very familiar room, right? For some of you, because you went to school here, high school. And William and others are here when we came to this morning, perhaps your teacher. Who wants to like to show me what thankful for we are? Our president, George. I'm thankful that you're all here, that this auspicious occasion gives us something on Shabbat we don't normally have. Cushions on the seats. With cushiony experience. Ah, yes, please.
I would like to announce that I am very grateful to Taryn and Mo to making me a step. Great, right. I am so happy to be here. I really am. So I just want.
Thank you. Who would like to share? By the way, we live stream the service. Everybody, the world would like to sign. Who would like to share your thing?
I'm thankful for the beautiful amount of people there. I feel like I'm at high holidays, so I think that this is a dress rehearsal. But I'm thankful and that I'm going back to New York on Tuesday for a memorial of one of my very dear special friends. And so I'm thankful to be going back to New York because I haven't been there since the pandemic, which I used to go all the time, 6 times, 12 times a year, whatever. But I'm thankful to be going back there with my husband and with my sister. And so that will be a real hard and get to be in New York. So I'm thankful for that.
Thank you, Davida. By the way, I didn't mention that in our high holiday services, this is where we do have our high holiday services. Meeting in this room off and on for the last 28 years of the life of our congregation. And while we would love to have you with the members and non-members, not a member. It's open to
But David mentioned New York. David and I are going to New York on Wednesday to celebrate Friends Day at Syracuse, where our grandson Gavi is going to school. We're going to spend the weekend with him. And that's really exciting. So,
And I am fortunate enough to be able to go to New Jersey to be with my other family, my son and his children for Rosh Hashanah. And I will be back in time for Yom Kippur here for the rest of my family.
Thank you.
do we open the floodgates here? Anybody else like to share? Ah, Nancy.
We're thankful to finally come back to Subic. We've been missing for a while because our house is up for sale. The buyers, they backed out, which kind of messes up. We have an appraisal coming on Monday for the new buyers. And then we're moving to San Paulo. We will be here for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But, we're going to be out of
To the gratitude section. Anyone want to share before we have Sandra's order, our mutual vice president? Sharon? Anybody on the screen who would like to share? Okay, Stan.
I'm blessed to have this congregation. I'm blessed that I can use, pardon me, my retirement years to enhance the life of this community. And to me, I'm the ritual vice president, where ritual to me means community. So that's what I emphasize. And one of the blessings I have is being able to have this spot every Shabbat. But the last time that we had a baby naming here in this congregation was the Bermans. And so normally I talk about something that's in the Jewish world or, Jewish history, Jewish people, but I'm going to ask Alan Berman to do this in my stead because of my voice. You saved me from talking more about myself.
Shabbat Shalom. I guess it's the past Zadie who got to do this. Whichever one of you is the Zadie, you'll be doing this at the next baby naming. It's the new tradition at the congregation. So Stan was nice enough to provide this to me. So in the biblical text, boys and men's names are often explained. Girls and women's rarely are, and more often than their counterparts, female figures go unnamed to the reader. There is no prescribed conventional ritual for girls parallel to that of the Brit Milah, the circumcision for boys. Still, the laws of the ancient temples in Jerusalem called for sacrifices of thanksgiving after the birth of a child of either sex, after 40 days for a boy and after 80 days for a girl. The Talmud records the custom in ancient Israel planting a cedar tree when a boy was born and a cypress tree when a girl was born. The longest standing tradition among Ashkenazic Jews, those of German and Eastern European origin, is for the father to come to the synagogue on the first Shabbat after his daughter's birth and receive an aliyah, the honor of reading the blessings before and after a portion of the public Torah reading. Afterward, a prayer for healing is said for the new mother, and the baby's name is publicly proclaimed. In many congregations today, this is still the custom, although in non-Orthodox congregations, also the mother also participates. The ancient rabbis and their successors through the medieval and modern periods did not conceive of a ceremony for a girl intended to parallel that for a boy, welcoming her into the covenant between God and the Jewish people. That would wait until the second half of the 20th century. The first known ceremony of welcoming, naming, and covenant for a girl was published in 1973. Similar ceremonies were emerging at about the same time in the Reform movement, which were quite varied, struggled with questions of liturgy, which prayers and blessings should be said. Ritual, what could be innovative as ceremonies for girls had to be yet resonate with the power of tradition and terminology. What should we call these ceremonies? The most common names for these ceremonies are Simchat Bat, celebrating a daughter, Brit Bat, a daughter's covenant, or in English, simply a baby naming. While the 1970s and early 1980s saw blossoming of ceremonies for girls, this took place only among a relatively small number of Jews sharing resources and ideas. The mid-1980s and especially the 1990s saw greater interest. Rabbis' manuals began to include examples and guidelines for girls' welcoming ceremonies. The publications in 2001 of the book, Celebrating Your New Jewish Daughter, Creating Jewish Ways to Welcome Baby Girls into the Covenant, was a sign that ceremonies for girls, while still not universal, had arrived. And we've arrived today at another baby name. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Alan. So that is going to, and Stan, so that is going to prepare us for a little bit later on in the Torah service when we will actually have a child. So up until then, you have to call the baby me, you, hey you, or what's your name? But we'll all know her name in just a few minutes. But we continue now with our opportunity individually to share what we are particularly thankful for. So I'm going to ask you all to rise. We're going to do the prayer at the bottom of page 18, and then we'll be on our own for a couple of minutes to reflect on how good life is. Sur Yisrael, Kuma B'Yisrael, Yisrael, Ufedeinu Meha, Yehuda B'Yisrael, Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Israel. We continue quietly. Aleinu v'yakov, Aleinu v'yakov, Aleinu v'yakov, Yisrael. Sim shalom dola ubracha, Eina v'aches v'rachami. Sim shalom dola ubracha, Eina v'aches v'rachami. Einu v'yakov Yisrael. Einu v'yakov Yisrael omecha. Sim shalom tova ubracha. V'achem sherachami. Ose shalom, shalom, shalom. Givro malchut Hashem shalom. Aleinu. Ose shalom, shalom, shalom. Givro malchut Hashem shalom. Aleinu v'yakov Yisrael Imaru. Please be seated. Yitgadal v'yitgadal Shmei Rabbah. Yamani Rafi Utevu Machadeh B'chayich Onevu Mechon V'chayich V'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav Yizman Karibi Imaru. Yesh Shmei Rabbah V'Rabbah. Rocky Sabaki Clark, remember the said you had Dari, and also made a good shot. Really, really, the cover of the short top. Douchebag, and Monta, Dabi Rangi, Madi, Maru, Tika Bells, but Hunt, but Hold the Hoy Israel. Adama going to be Shmai, Maru. He's number of them, Jemai, Hemaling, Bialko, Israel, the Maru. Amen. Oh, say Shalom, Ibromav. We say Shalom. Aleinu Bialko, Israel, the Maru. We come to the Torah service, in the middle of page 19. We have some people who are already designated to participate in service. Loomis is going to be carrying the Torah to the congregation after seeing the preliminary prayers. As it goes around, we can kiss it as it passes by. Mo is going to be the Hagbah, but we do need somebody. He's going to pick up the Torah after we finish reading it, but we do need somebody who is going to be binding the Torah. Is there anybody who volunteers to wrap the Torah with the binder? Please raise your hand. Well, and we have a new binder. It's an old binder, but Bonnie has put Velcro in it. So you don't have to make ribbons and ties and bows and knots or anything. It's got to match up the Velcro. So we continue our service on page 19. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'ma'asecha. Malchut malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch li'olam v'ayim. Adonai olos li'amo yitei, Adonai olos. Aharachim, Eitiva v'rtzonecha esiyom, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. King v'chalei b'ganav. Vayehi bin so Aaron vayomer Moshe Luma Adonai v'yachutzu oivecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha Ki Mision Teisei Torah. Ki Mision Teisei Torah. Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah. Liamo Yisrael. Bigdushato. Beyanarachet. Velishme Kadisha Yakira. Anaman to Beyanarachet, Velishme Kadisha Yakira, Anamar Tushbechan, Yeravakadama, Tiftach Libi, Oraita, Vitashli Mishalim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol.
L'romama Shemo Yachad.
Lecha Adonai Hagidu, Rabbi Hatiferet v'hanei Zachrehaot, Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Adonai hamamlacha, Ve'amigdasei lechol rashim. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion teisei Torah. Kim Etzion, Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Adonai Mirushalayim. Mirushalayim. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion, Etzion, Etzion teisei Torah. Good Adonai, Yerushalayim. Good Adonai, Yerushalayim. Goodbye, Adonai, Mirushalayim. Goodbye, Adonai, Mirushalayim. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion teisei Torah. Etzion, Etzion, Etzion teisei Torah. Please remain standing for the Aliyah. Another unique feature of our contemporary service is that everybody gets to have an Aliyah. And everybody gets to have an Aliyah simply by remaining where you are. But we're all going to point. We are all going to point to the Torah portion that the Bonnie is about to read. It's Kitab Bo, and we're all going to have an opportunity to say the bracha. So Bonnie is going to come back here, and she's going to point to the Torah portion, Kitab Bo. So everybody from where you are, and if you're not wearing a tali, just point with your pinky right here and kiss. And the blessing is in your siddur. Baruch hu atah Adonai haolam, baruch atah
V'hayino kitavo el haaretz, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. Adonai Elohecha noten lach, nachala ve'ishta v'yashtava v'elakach Bereshit kol pri adama, asher tavi me'artzecha, asher Adonai Elohecha, noten lach v'samta b'telet, ve'halachta el hamakom, asher yibhar Adonai Elohecha, v'shachen shmo sham. Ubata elakohe asher yeh bayamim hahem ve'amarta Elohav higadati hayom ladonai Elohecha hibati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai la'avotenu latei lanu.
Point again with your pinky or your tummy, right here, and kiss. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu haolam, asher natan lanu Torah v'chayei olam v'ta'atenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Torah. Mishikoah, please, everybody sit down, and to a very important part of our service, we're going to bestow a Hebrew name upon a baby. And we do this before the open Torah, and we do this before the honor and the Torah seat in memory of Audrey, Allah Shalom, in her sacred memory. And we're going to call upon the baby, along with the parents, William and Tara, and the immediate family. I know the rest of you are family, but we need some people to remain in the congregation to watch it. So the immediate family, as well as the parents of the baby, please come and join me here. How wonderful to share this wonderful simcha. And as Paula had mentioned, our lives have gone back so many decades, almost a half a century, because the Katz, Franco, Halen family have been members of Temple Bethany going back many, many years. I asked Paula what she remembers of the times that our lives intersected. She told me that she was 12 when I first came to Temple Bethany, and I officiated the bar mitzvah, all of the children's bar mitzvahs, at their wedding, at the namings of their sons, at Heather's baby naming that was done at Bethany, and I taught a number of them here at the Toledo High School as well as back at Temple Bethany. And so now we have an opportunity to bring in this newest member of the Jewish community, Emma, and we're going to have an opportunity to say a blessing and then to learn something about after whom Emma is being named. And so I'm going to share first this blessing. ישבר רבותינו אברהם יצחק יעקב שר וחבליה הוא יברך את ההורים ויד ביתם הנולדה להם במזל טוב וקורא שמע בישראל נדיבה מלכה. יהי רצון טוב אנחנו שיזכו לגוד להוראה לגודלו לתורה ולכל המעשים טובים ונאמר אמן. May he who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Will and Terran and the daughter that has been born unto them, Mazel Tov, and may her name be called among the children of Israel. In English, her name is Emma Lake Frankel, and in Hebrew, her name will be Nadiva Malka Bat Ze'el Moshe Yael. Let me tell you something about after whom the baby is named, because there's significant people in Emma's life, and when she gets older, she's going to want to know something about who these people were, not just their biography, but also their character and their virtues, because these are some of the qualities that she is going to want to have as part of her makeup, her personality, so that these people that I'm going to explain in a moment are going to live on in her life. So these are the names and after whom she is being named. Emma is named after Ed, William's grandfather. There's no secret, this was written by the family. There's no secret in our family that Ed and William had a special bond and relationship. Fortunately for William, he was the oldest grandchild in the family and had a head start of winning Dee's heart and affection. Throughout his life, he was a person that has always loved and cared for William without asking anything else of each other. He was reliable and someone who brought happiness to his life, which we hope Emma carries. His middle English name, Blake, comes from Terran's grandmother, Barbara. As soon as Terran was born, Barbara was her biggest fan. Their bond was incredibly special and they were inseparable. Barbara was a hardworking, generous, and kind person. We can hope that Emma embodies these great qualities. Audrey in Hebrew means Nadiva. This is defined as generous, to give, noble. I think these reflect a few of Audrey's many great virtues and qualities. Audrey was always generous in many forms, but one of the most memorable was the generosity of the time. Always there for us and willing to drop all of her plans to come take care or spend time with us. She was always present, willing to do anything to support her family. We hope Emma embodies Audrey's generosity. And Malka is named after Sheila Frankel. His Hebrew name is Sheila, which means heard by God or famous. I found it ironic as Sheila was one to always be heard and always have everyone's attention when she spoke. I believe this is because Sheila was respected and valued among all her family and friends. To me, these qualities remind me of the queen, and Sheila was without a doubt the queen of her family. In Hebrew, The queen is referred to as Malka. We hope Emma embodies the noble qualities of being a queen, being respected and valued among her family. May the parents rear their daughter to womanhood imbued with love of the Torah and the performance of good deeds. And may they be privileged to bring her to the wedding canopy. And let us all say Amen and Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. And they don't leave them empty-handed. Not only do they have a baby, but they have a certificate. There's no expenses in how we put our certificates together. I mean, here's certificates. And here's a lovely vanilla. Mazel tov, mazel tov. You return to your seats, and Emma will hear her first. So Emma begins her life, and the ceremony ushers her into the Jewish community. The Torah portion, Ki Tavo, is you saw we're coming to the end of the Torah. We begin it again after the high holidays, but we only have a few more portions left before we come to the completion of the reading of it. But it says Ki Tavo El Haaretz. God is saying to the people of Israel through Moses, you're about to finish your journey. You're about to enter after 40 years of being in the wilderness and hundreds of years of slavery. You're about to enter into the promised land. There's stuff you got to make sure you do, you prepare for. And similarly, this month before the high holidays is also a month for all of us to be doing our own preparation, because we're entering into our own kind of special land, which is the next Jewish year. And we are supposed to, with the high holy days, not only usher it in with joy, but also with introspection. We're supposed to be thinking about, in this month of Elul, the month preceding the high holy days, we're supposed to be thinking about what it is that we have been doing right and we're grateful for, but also all the things that we're falling short, that we've been sinning. That's what a sin is. Sin in Judaism is falling short. And in fact, the Hebrew word for sin, one of them is chet, which I think a lot of you already know means arrow. And it reminds us that the arrow is like the arrow that we aim at a bullseye. And that when you hit the bullseye, you're doing exactly what you should be doing with your life. But if it falls short, either it falls on the ground or it falls short of the center of the target, then you measure the distance between the bullseye and where your arrow ended up, and that's your fate. That is your transgression. That is the area that needs improvement. And the way in which we improve is teshuvah, which means redirect your aim. So this is the period that we think about where have we fallen short, so that when the high holidays come, we can begin to redirect our aim to teshuvah, or what we commonly refer to as repentance. So I want to share with you just two lessons. And these lessons that will help us to think about where we've fallen short are suggested by Rabbi Israel Salanter. Now, Israel Salanter was the founder of the Musar movement. It was a special 19th century movement attempting to inculcate values within the Jewish community. And there were a few things that he said which were particularly relevant to this time as we prepare for the high holy days, of which I only want to mention two. The first thing he said is, even while you are absorbed in concern and trepidation about the day of judgment, Yom Kippur, you are not free to violate the prohibition against stepping on another's toes. Now that's interesting. I want you to picture a shul back in the old country. And everybody's kind of crowded in. These weren't big buildings. And there are people who are praying and they're davening and they're shuckling and they're moving and they're bouncing. And then somebody in that moment of great prayerfulness and devotion and thinking and praying begins in the process of moving around to step on somebody's toes. But they're so caught up in the prayerfulness of the moment that they don't realize they're standing on somebody's foot. And what Rabbi Israel Salanter is saying is, you may be in the heights of prayerfulness, but don't neglect what's going on the ground here, because you may be stepping on somebody's foot. And you need to be not so absorbed in your prayers that you forget another person's needs. So that's the first of two lessons, that we need to remind ourselves that life can be so distracting that we get distracted from other people's needs. So they tell the story, and you've heard this story before, I'm sure, of Martin Buber. Professor Martin Buber was writing a book. He was a teacher at a seminary. And Rabbi Buber was in the process of being at home writing one of his remarkable tomes when he got a knock on the door. And he took a breath. He was in the middle of something, but he went and he answered the door, and it was one of his students at the seminary. And the student said, I have a question for you, Professor Buber. And he said, please tell me the question. He asked the question, Professor Buber gave him an answer. The boy said, thank you. Professor Buber went back to his writing. And the next day, Professor Buber came to teach his class. That student that he talked to the night before wasn't in class. And he said to the other students, where is he? And they said, oh, Professor Buber, you didn't hear? He committed suicide last night. Martin Buber was devastated. And he thought back to his communication with the young man. He said, I answered his question. I heard the question. I thought I gave a good answer. Why did he commit suicide? What happened? And then he thought even more deeply about that interaction that he had with him. He realized he was so caught up in just answering the question, he didn't take time to listen to the way in which the young man asked the question. And as he thought back, he realized, oh my God, there was a tremor in his voice I'm just hearing now. Oh my God, there was a hesitancy. There was a look on his face that I should have seen, but I missed it completely. And Professor Buber's life changed after that because he became more aware and not so oblivious to what was going on around him. So that's what we have to be careful about. That we are so caught up in what we're doing that we miss the signals that are coming from people. Part of the problem is that the signals that come from other people in our lives, they're misleading. Watch the news, and you will see that very often when somebody is sharing a story of a tragedy in his or her family, they're smiling. Watch, it's remarkable. I saw one woman whose parents were murdered the night before. She was being interviewed and she was smiling and she was telling about how devastated she was. Because the look on our face doesn't always reflect the pain in our heart. And the reason that people cry when they're happy and they tear up when they're also happy is because the line between great joy and great sadness is right next to each other. And sometimes in a moment of great joy, you weep. We call that getting hysterical, right? But it's so joyous that the tears flow. And sometimes you are so sad and grief-stricken that you smile. And we need to read the signs. And if we're so caught up in our own lives, we may miss them. So when we say to somebody, how are you? That fine doesn't always necessarily, or doesn't necessarily reflect how they really feel. I remember in that hall right there, a few years ago, I was walking between classes. I taught here for 20 years at the Toledo High School, many of those years in this building. And as I was walking to my next class, there was a ninth grader walking by and said, "Hi, how are you?" "Fine." There was something about the way he said fine that didn't sound fine to me, even though he had a little smile on his face. And I stopped and I said, "No, really, how are you?" And I began to see his lower lip tremble. And I said, "Come with me." And we came into my office. And as soon as he sat down and I closed the door, he began to weep. Life was not fun. And we need to catch these signs, because all external indications from the face and the voice may not necessarily reflect the pain here, the tissues. One of the reasons that we are so distracted is because of our cell phones. Because we are so caught up in what's in our hands that we miss what is in front of our eyes. And we have to be very careful. How many times has my wife and I walked around the block, said hello to people around the neighborhood? We do this every single morning. There is always somebody walking by us with his phone, and we give a joyful good morning, and he didn't even hear. He just walked right by us and kind of look at each other. Yeah, that's pretty much what's been going on. People get so caught up in the things in their hands that the people in front get short-lived. So that's the first lesson. The first lesson is that we can't be so absorbed in our lives and our things and our thoughts that we don't see the feelings and the thoughts and the pain or joy in the person right in front of us. And then the second lesson that Rabbi Salanter said was, when you have to make a decision, ask yourself, how would I decide if it were Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur? Now, you know that Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur is the very last prayer on Yom Kippur. And there's this imagery that we have of these books that are opened up in Rosh Hashanah, that you have the books of the wicked, you've got the books of the holy righteous, and then you got a third book in the middle, the in-betweeners. And apparently, according to what some people think, but it's absolutely not true, I warn you in advance, there's this thought that God makes decisions between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which book you're going to end up in, the holy wicked or the holy righteous. That you're going to die in a terrible, miserable way, perhaps, or your life is going to be okay for a year. I can tell you right away, that's just not true. That's not the way God works, I don't think. If it is, then that's not the God I want to take to it. There's got to be a lot more to it than what happens during 10 days. But what Rabbi Salanter is saying is, God is always ready to make a final decision on your life. It's the one more hour left of Yom Kippur. What are you going to do? How are you going to live your life? And are you going to merit, reward, and get in the book of the good people? There is an imagery in Judaism that our life is in the balance. Right now, we're at 50-50 between good deeds and bad deeds. And the next deed that we do is going to tilt the scale. And so be careful about what we're about to do. And then everything that we do is supposed to have that in mind. The next thing we do is going to tilt the scale. Right now, we're at 50-50. One rabbi said, it's even worse than that, or even better than that. It's not your life is at 50-50. The whole world is at 50-50. And whatever you do determines what happens to the world's destiny. So be careful about what you do. I created at the school and in my congregation something that I call Kodesh moments. And a Kodesh moment, remember Kodesh moments here? Kodesh moment is how we can elevate our life with the next act that we do and be as holy as we can be. That's what being holy is. When we are at the best behavior possible. And I always take every opportunity to do a Kodesh moment. That the next thing that I do, it might tip the scales, but it certainly is gonna make me more aware of what needs to be done. So I'll pick up paper and throw it out, or I'll open the door for somebody, or I'll stop gossiping, or I will smile at somebody, and you just never know what it's going to be. But when we can accumulate Kodesh moments because we have decided that the next thing that we do is going to be that important, then we're going to give it importance, and we're going to be careful about what we do. So 2 lessons from Israel Salanter as we approach the High Holy Days. Think about how your life is in regard to what Rabbi Salanter was hoping for. That we have to be very attuned to what is going on around us and not oblivious. And secondly, that we need to make sure that the next thing that we do elevates our life to the highest level. Shabbat shalom. And now we're going to do a Mishnah Be'er for those who now know. And so I'll ask you to go, I'm going to start the prayer, and then I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. These who are sick. Not to stand in the community. Any more this section? Okay, this section, please raise your hands. Yes. Names. The names in this section. This section, please.
Stella, and Jane Ashton and
Any names in this section? Okay. The section, please. Anybody online who we missed? הקדוש ברוך הוא ישלח להם במהרה רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף ותאוצ'ר place of the Lord. And may the mercy of the Lord restore these people to full health and to full vigor along with all others who are struggling with illness and say. We can say a blessing for the United States of America. Harashaman v'yivarchet artzot habrית v'yaged aleha. God bless the United States of America and protect her. And as we are about to say a prayer for Israel, we remember, and some of them are wearing reminders of the devastation and tragedy that's taking place in the Middle East, and that with everything else that's going on with our concerns for war, there are still hostages that are in dankest and darkest of tunnels, and we want them to come from darkness into light. And so our thoughts are also with the hostages, almost 100 of them. We're not sure how many of them are still alive, but our prayers are for ceasing of war and the creation of peaceful context within the Middle East. So in a minute, I'm going to, Mo and Paula, I can come up in a minute, and they're going to have an opportunity to pick up the Torah and to bind it. But first, thank you, Sam, for this about Israel. We always wanted to learn something good about what's going on in Israel. This was delightful. Chocolate, the sweet treat that is loved in food, drinks, or enjoyed on its own, is a firm favorite worldwide. The chocolate comes in a price that goes beyond what we pay in the shops. The industry has a heavy impact on the environment. An Israeli startup called Celeste Bio is determined to change that with its lab-cultivated cocoa beans. Lab-cultivated cocoa beans. The Worldwide Wildlife Fund says that farmers who grow the cocoa beans, 70% of whom are in the West African countries, tend to clear tropical forests to plant new cocoa trees rather than reusing the same. Because of this, West Africa is experiencing massive deforestation. But the environmental toll does not end there. Two other common ingredients in chocolate, soy and palm oil, are also major causes of deforestation throughout the world. But Celeste Bio, this Israeli company, says it has the answer. Cultivating cocoa in the lab from cocoa beans that is indistinguishable from farmed cocoa. The lab cultivated cocoa is grown from just a couple of actual beans, which can repeatedly be reproduced and without having to cut a single tree. So we're going to ask the husband, Leila, Lo, and Paul, to please come forward. Everybody, please rise and we return the Torah to you. Okay, move. Torah, Asher Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael. Yeah, but
It's not easier. Wait.
Thank you both. We remain standing for Aleinu, page 24. Aleinu Shamei Alado. Vashavikaro, Vashamayim Mima'ah, Ushti Natuzo, Ushti Natuzo, Vega Pei Meroni. Hakatu v'torata v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavesa ki Adonai v'shamayim mimah v'haaretz mitata. Please be seated. However, if you are in mourning or observing yard site, please remain standing as we observe these yard sites for the coming 2 weeks. Oscar Berman, James Elm, Melva Delman, Eliezer Chaim, Dr. Edward M. Kazel, Sandra Korsch, Clara Rosenblum, Rebecca Maurer, Norman Spetner, Bernice Leemsveg, Bernard Rose, and Barbara Naomi Tober. Are there any yard sites that we have neglected? No. Thank you. Any other names we've neglected? Thank you. Any other names? Neglected? The Monas Kaddish is on page 25. Yishgadal, the Yishgadash, Shemei Rabbah. V'yamad Ibrahi Rutei, V'yamrid Malchutei, V'chayechod, V'yamechod, V'chayedecho, Beit Yisrael, V'agala, Uvizman Kari, V'yamiru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah, V'orach, V'yalamu, V'yamai. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kedusha b'richu leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushkefata v'nechamata da'amiran v'amad v'imru amen. Yehei shulam ha'rava min shemayim v'chayim aleinu v'yamko Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromah hu yaseh shalom Aleinu v'Alkol Yisrael v'Yemiru. Amen. Please be seated as I invite our President, Jordan Bissell, to share some communal announcements.
Shabbat shalom. I'm glad to see so many people are traveling. On Monday, I'm going to Sherman Oaks to work. Sure. As you all know, we begin our High Holy Day services with Erev Rosh Hashanah on Wednesday, October 2nd at 8 p.m. and First Day Rosh Hashanah services on Thursday, October 3rd at 9 a.m. After that, look on your tickets. Looking a little farther out, Mitzvah Day will be on November 3rd at the Jewish Home for the Aging on Victory and Wilbur. We will have a fun-filled time serving pizza, making Hanukkah cards, and playing bingo. People can email or text our Social Action Vice President, Becky Findlay, to say they are coming. Reservations need to be made by October 28th, and $10 will be taken at the door. If you have any questions, just hunt down Becky, who is sitting right there. I want to thank Paul and Paula Frankel for this large attendance at our Shabbat service and luncheon to follow. I always derive a certain measure of satisfaction, however warped, when I get to call up D2 Lido, and given the average age of our members, which is between 80 and God knows what, and tell them, you want me to say between 80 and death? Right, exactly. God knows what. This is my next deed. I'm in deep trouble. But given the age of our members, to tell them that we're having a baby name just to see their reaction. Also, and this on a personal note, the extended nature of the celebration service will keep me from having to watch UCLA play LSU. Especially after sitting Shiva at last week's UCLA Indiana game. Our next Shabbat service will be Shabbat Shuvah on October 5th at 10:30 a.m. here at D Toledo. Also, for those of you who may be expecting our board meeting to be the first Wednesday in October, since that is Erev Rosh Hashanah, it wouldn't be quite kosher, so it will be October 9th. Elvis. I also want to thank Paul and Paul Frankel, not only for the large attendance, but for the luncheon following service. Proceed out the door. Proceed out the door. None of the schmoozing at the doorway. People love to schmooze at doorways. Go out the doorway to the stairway. Go upstairs. There's also an elevator. It's Shabbat, but we use elevators on Shabbat because we drove here. Anybody have anything else to add or subtract?
I will have a certain number of the Shir notes on paper, but you can always get them from our website, the Shir notes and the calendar of what's coming on. And we encourage you to take advantage of what we do.
Always take advantage of what we do. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Jordan. After services, if you could all please return your Sidurim, your prayer books, and your Talitot to the entry. And when you go up for luncheon, please go ahead and just say a Kiddush and a Hamosi to yourself. There will be grape juice and wine available for everybody, as well as a little challah. But rather than make everybody have to wait until we've all gathered before we say the prayers, just say the Hagafen and the Hamotzi to yourself and begin to eat. We're going to conclude our service with Adon Olam, page 26. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'Terem Tov, Tzivra, Ein Asah, B'Chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shalom Dikram.
And the best of words that I knew that I didn't know that just then. Oh my gosh. Sybil's there. Bye, Sybil. Bye-bye. Oh.
Hi, good to see you. It has been in Boston, talk to you. So you're still in your honeymoon?
Well, we're both in Florida, so it's a little less honeymoon, but yeah.
Good, Melissa, I'm delighted to refer to the information. I'm seeing the pictures. So good to see you.
You too.
And welcome home. You're welcome.
Are we okay that might be in that?
Not a little weak as I look. It's a little heavier than I. But I'm also a year older than him. He's Rosh Hashanah. I'm not.
It's for Shabbat Shul, so yeah, it'll still be on the list.
I'll be right.
Okay, thanks,
I'm
Mark.
going to move from 8 to 15.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until I say how much
Yeah, you know what I think I'll do? I think I'll walk the box with the right hand.
that.
Only the one. Healed my muscle.
Okay, good for you. Good to see you, Sam.
Same here, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Goodbye, Sybil, Phyllis, and Laura. Shabbat Shalom. We're signing off. Bye-bye.